Alright, well, welcome back to Project 2 and the summer update for the Turbo Yamaha S21 project. It's been a little bit since the last video, so we've got a lot to talk about. Seems like not much more is in a completed state, but I have been chipping away at several different things at once, so this video will jump around a bit. As most of you are aware, I've built this one-off cowling around a 3-cylinder turbo Yamaha engine, and well, I can't just let that heat from the exhaust ruin all that hard work, so I needed some heat shielding. Since nobody seems to make heat shields for a snowmobile-powered airplane, I'm on my own. To be honest, I'm still not 100% satisfied with the outcome you'll see here in this video. However, I do believe it's functional, and it'll allow me to progress with other tasks and revisit this later on. I sourced some dimpled 304 stainless sheets online from eBay, as well as some cowl ceramic insulation. Both of those can take more heat than the exhaust system will ever produce, so it's a good start. I felt it was important to be able to remove these heat shields from the exhaust for inspection purposes, so making them integral is out of the question in my opinion. I settled on a clamshell design, and what you see me doing is forming one of the halves of the shield for the crossover tube leading to the turbo. I have an inner layer of 304 and an outer layer of 304 sandwiching about 1/4 inch of ceramic material, which ultimately squished down to a lot less during fabrication. I do intend to cover everything all the way to the end of the muffler, but for the purposes of this video, I'll stop at the turbo. I know I'm not giving a real great view of all this, but the concept is to make the outer layer of 304 just a tad bigger than the inner layer, and that allows for a lip to be folded over the ceramic and the inner layer of metal. This approach has proven effective, even though it does leave some to be desired in the aesthetic department. Once I have the two halves, I took advantage of any stock heat shield mounting locations, as well as wrapped it in several locations with stainless steel safety wire to secure it in place. Here's a shot of what I've done so far, and just so you can get an idea of what the end goal looks like. Shifting focus to the cowling for a bit, here's the current state of things on that front. As you can see, I've got the radiator fan hidden inside the ductwork, and it's all pre-wired to a cannon plug for easy install. The little red thing there is a baro sensor, and I'll talk more about that here in just a bit. I've got a little bit of heat shield material on the top of this vent in the areas that are closest to the header, just in case. Up front is the newest addition, and I'll get back to that shortly, but first let's take a look at the mounting location for the voltage regulator. I didn't video this process, but here's a few pictures of how I went about it. I just covered the regulator in aluminum tape and layered up some carbon over that. I then inset that form into the duct and trimmed out the hole to allow this regulator to be cooled by the air passing through the duct. This worked out pretty slick if you ask me. Alright, let's move on and look into the cold air intake for the turbo. I found a universal K&N filter that had a sealing flange around its perimeter and designed a swirl pot airbox that molded into the front section of the lower cowling. The idea here is that this will serve as a particle and water separator. The airbox is butted right up to the air duct for the radiator, and it has a few small drain holes to allow any moisture buildup to evacuate through the radiator and out the cowl exit. It's fed through a small ram air inlet just below the spinner, and you'll see that here in just a bit. I originally acquired this pre-made NACA from Cameron Aircraft to use in this spot, but I ended up going down the path of combining the airbox and the inlet into one unit, and it no longer was going to suit my needs. But I wanted to show you guys that there are other options out there, and it would be much simpler than the path that I chose. I encourage anyone needing something like this to explore CameronAircraft.com, as well as these same parts are available on Spruce, just to see if there's any one that fits your needs. It's also super fun to look at the other things Cameron Aircraft is up to, like the full-scale composite turbine P51 stuff. Like the regulator flange, I didn't video the process, but here's some photos outlining what I did. Like usual, I'm not advocating that this is the right way or that anyone should replicate what I do. I only aim just to show that this stuff isn't rocket science, and you're only limited to the imagination between your ears. In this case, I used the trash can from our laundry room as the main shape and formed the rest out of some foam board. I covered this with foil tape and laid up the bulk of the airbox off the cowl so that this inner mold would be easily removed. I then installed that and molded it into the rest of the cowl with the same techniques that you've seen me use in the past. In the end, it's a functional airbox that weighs nothing and has very few failure points. All this still needs some final refinement, but I'm anxious to get into some ground testing to confirm it works before spending much more time on it. All these functions built into one part does make the cowl a bit awkward for one person to put up in place, but it is possible. You can see me here holding it up with one knee while I'm using a screwdriver through a fastener hole to hold things up while I start the screws. Right now I have 3 1/4-inch fasteners on each side, and you'll see me shake the whole plane here in a second from the tip of this cowl, so it's very stiff due to all the molded in ducting. I made up some countersink hat bushings to protect the composite from the fasteners, and these will be bonded in after the cowl finish is applied. A little lathe work is always fun, and it's even better when it actually turns out to be just right. Here you can see how the duct aligns with the intercooler. It's got a small gap all the way around just to keep anything from wearing on each other. It's a pretty snug fit as we move forward down the right side. Up front you see the ram air duct for the air filter, which lies just off center to the right. That same gap exists on the radiator side as well. You can now see where the silicone duct for the turbo inlet will hook up to this airbox. Above the fan is a cannon plug that powers it. And the little sensor wires for that baro sensor that I mentioned earlier. That's just a temporary thing, so it's not running through a permanent plug. It's just secured in place with some foil tape for now. It plugs into another duplicate sensor here on the battery box, just behind the radiator, and then it goes inside to a small display that I built up. It displays cowl temps and pressures. I wrote a simple little program that takes these measurements and calculates the delta and displays it here on the screen. This will give me guidance along the development process, giving me direct feedback and effectiveness of changes that I make to any of the airflow. Here's the upper cowl, and a look at how I molded in a threaded bushing for the rod side of these latches. Right now I only have this front right side done, and it's just kind of a proof of concept, and it works pretty good, I think. These are just some hood pins for race cars that you can find online, and I think it's a pretty simple, slick solution for a toolless removal of the upper cowl. But hey, that's just what I think. Let me know what your thoughts are in the comments below, and I look forward to the next update real soon. Thanks for watching.